guys, it's Amelia, but not the pilot, just Amelia. I am back with another book review. Let's do a February wrap-up. So I read 11 books this month. What a time. Being unemployed is doing wonders for my Goodreads goals. So I did 6 audiobooks and 5 books this year. So I'm basically like averaging like a book and an audiobook a week. I finished the Painted Devils series, which it's a duology currently. I'm not sure if she's writing another one though. It's called Little Thieves is the first one, and then the second one is called Painted Devils. I don't want to go into it since it is a sequel and I don't want to spoil things, but if you look at my last video, I talked about it. I really liked them. I think they're like a fun little spooky little young adult fantasy novel. It's got gods, it's got some magic, it's got mythology that's perhaps German inspired ? I don't know. It was fun. And then I also finished off the Atlas 6 series. So I read Atlas Paradox and Atlas Complex, which is the second and third book of that series, and so good. I am very upset with how it ended, and I will not be going into it. I also don't want to spoil too much for that series, but if you haven't seen, I've made a video about Atlas 6. I did a little vlog of me reading the first one. I did not vlog the second and third one because I blew through those really fast, and I just wanted to enjoy it. I didn't want to videotape my experience, but I loved them. They're like my perfect type of book. Atlas 6, I would say, is like a good vibe for people who liked Harry Potter as a kid. It's like, it's got that magical, like, dark academia, private school thing going on with all these complex characters who all have their different problems, and we got some big, like, moral questions. I loved it. I also read Chain Gang All-Stars this month. This was a recommendation from my mom. Shout out to Ma. Hope you're watching this video. I feel like everyone should read this book. It was really good. It is clearly a result of the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests, racism in America vibes, and it's so good. It's really impactful, but it's still a dystopian fantasy book, so if you like dystopian fantasies, you're gonna like this one. Follows a handful of different characters, but we're in like a near future America dystopian where our prison system is now like the Hunger Games. So incarcerated people can now opt in to participate in hard action sports, which is basically just a murder arena. And if you survive the murder arena for 3 years, guess what? You're free. It's crazy. What I really liked about this book is how it was very fast-paced and you're constantly switching between different character perspectives, but it just sort of throws you in there, so you don't really know who this is or what's going on until you get like a page or two in. Every chapter is like that, but it is definitely purposely done and really keeps you as the reader on your toes and sort of like, which is how all the characters also feel. So I liked that. I also loved, there's little footnotes throughout the whole book. And a handful of them are just like talking about the characters, like footnote, this character's backstory, blah, 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 which at first I didn't really like because I was like, this is world building that you could have done in the story. But then I liked it because he started weaving in real, true facts about our prison system in America that are horrible, like horrible things. And it really sheds to light how not like realistic that this is, but it really highlights how like consumerist and how bad our prison reform system is and how bad our prison system is and just like how racist it is. And it was just really good, and I think you should read it. The other physical book that I read was called Save the Cat, and it is a writing book that teaches you how to write a story. It was extremely helpful if you guys write in any capacity, whether that be film scripts, TV scripts, books, short stories, memoirs, anything. If you are telling a story, game plot, whatever, this book is very useful. It basically breaks down how a story works into like 15 different beats. I think it's 15 different beats that all stories have. Every story that's ever existed, if it's good, has these beats. I thought that was really interesting. And it's very helpful. So I zoomed through that. We're still writing. We're still gonna see what's gonna happen. So I also read Icebreaker, which if you don't know is a romance book. I don't really read romance books very often, so I'm gonna be honest, I just read this because everybody else is reading it, and I'm innately curious. I need to know. I need to know what y'all are talking about so I could either wreck it apart or at least know what's going on. I didn't love Icebreaker, but it's not for me. I think the girlies would love it. I get it. Sort of. I was actually reading it and narrating it, like what happened, to a group of my friends via voice note, as you do. And one of my friends happens to be in like a hockey family. She's got brothers who play, she knows whatever. And that was really fun for me because basically she was like, this author has never played hockey or knows nothing about hockey, which I feel like was pretty evident for me as well. First off, I don't understand the plot, if you don't know, is a figure skater and an ice hockey captain at a university in America. Enemies to lovers style end up dating and spicy moments ensue. There was a ton of spice, my god. I didn't think it was particularly that interesting. It wasn't very good by my academic analysis, but I think the girlies will like it. First off, it starts off with the fact that the school has 2 ice rinks, which I think is a little crazy. My school only had 1, but I guess the rich schools will have 2, I don't know. And apparently the ice hockey rink breaks, is now a pool, basically. And so they now have to share with the ice skaters. And see, my problem was, I'm assuming they have like 1, maybe 2 ice hockey teams. And then figure skaters, they probably have like 8 figure skaters, maybe. Like, figure skating teams I don't think are that big. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I don't feel like that's a problem. Like, y'all could share the court together. I don't know. Like, I'm sure there's a schedule that works out where, like, y'all figure skaters only have 1 or 2 people, so, like, just practice when you don't have your class. And then all of the ice hockey people will practice every night. I don't understand why there's a problem. This is the big problem at the beginning. It is solved eventually, or sort of, they don't really talk about it, but it didn't make sense. I was also told by my hockey friend that if you're going to play ice hockey in California, that means you're probably not good because California is not a particularly cold state. And if you're good at hockey, you'd be going somewhere like Colorado or something like that. Also, the team that he is signed for in the NHL is apparently not good. I don't know. But also, apparently, it's illegal to sign for NHL before you're off of your college team, is what I've been told. So, already lots of problems. So, I didn't love that one, but it existed. I read it. Audiobook-wise, I did another memoir. I did Opposite of Butterfly Hunting by Evanna Lynch. Evanna Lynch played Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter. I didn't love this audiobook, I'm not gonna lie. It is horribly depressing, but it also doesn't paint her in a great light. I guess you could say it's interesting from a psychological standpoint, but I also, like, don't want to psychoanalyze her. I just wanted to hear her story and her goofy little times at Harry Potter. But most of the book, I will say, if you're reading for Harry Potter purposes, most of the book is discussing her battle with anorexia. There's only 1 chapter about Harry Potter, really, which was fun. It was interesting, I guess. And she clears up how she got casted. I feel like there was a story promoted through the media for years that J.K. Rowling and her used to be pen pals, and that's how she got the job, because J.K. Rowling said, if you beat anorexia, you've got the part. And she said, okay, cured. And that's not how it works. And that's not what happened. So she cleared that up, so I thought that was interesting, like how her journey, where she's ended up now. It was interesting, but yeah, I don't know, it sort of paints her in a not great light. I was like, oh, I sort of don't think I like you as a person. And that's not great. And I'm a little curious if that's just because she herself perhaps doesn't love herself a lot and has difficulties with that. And that's why that's coming across in the book. I don't know. The story was fine. It was interesting. It's a very in-depth story of anorexia, though, so definitely trigger warning. I also listened to My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which sucked, man. These covers. I'm obsessed with the cover of this book. And I'm so upset because they got me. Capitalism got me again, boys. It got me again. I have been wanting to read this for like years, and I feel like all of the different social media people, all of my bookfluencers out there have been raving about this book, and I hated it. And then when I posted about it on Instagram being like, this book was not it, I got like 20 different people texting me being like, I know, I hated it. And I was like, okay, so it's not just me. All my average people out here, my friends and whatnot, also did not like it. It's, in my opinion, sort of like a Catcher in the Rye retelling, but from a feminism 2000s era type of view. I love a sad girl book. I'm not really into contemporary fiction, but I don't really feel like I learned from this book. The story follows a girl in her 20s who is an orphan. Both her parents have passed away, and she is living in this apartment in New York City, and she just wants to sleep forever. Like, relatable, who doesn't? And she's just sort of like struggling with life. She doesn't have any motivations. She doesn't want to know what she wants to do with her life. Relatable content, right, guys? However, her idea, which is unhealthy, if you relate to this, then maybe get some help. She decides she wants to sleep forever, all day. And so she basically finds like a psychologist who's not very good, she's just like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, I'm just having trouble sleeping. And then the psychologist is like, okay, here's a bunch of drugs. And so she basically just like self-medicates herself with all those, like, she picks and chooses which drugs she wants to take, and she just takes a bunch of them. So that she's sleeping for most of the day. She'll wake up, she'll go down to the bodega downstairs, like out of her apartment building, get some food, consume it quickly, go back to bed. That's all she does. And that's the whole story, which is boring. And I didn't like her. She was a horrible person. And all of the women in the book were sort of horrible, to be quite honest. Her best friend is like super vain, like that type girly girl type of annoying. Her mother sucks. The therapist sucks. Like, all the women suck in this story. I almost feel like it was like, it didn't pass the opposite Bechdel test. Like, they only talked about men in a sexual way. There's definitely some sort of feminism metaphor stuff going on here, but I did not like it. I think it was sort of like, women can be bad too. We support women's wrongs and rights. Which, great. However, I don't feel like I learned anything from this story, and I didn't vibe at any point. She just slept a lot, and then at the end, she was like, okay, I'm gonna be a normal societal human now. I don't know, man. It wasn't for me. Anyway, I also read A Winter in New York. So this is a romance book. As I said before, I don't usually read romances, but here we are, I guess. It's set around Christmas, but it starts at Valentine's Day the previous year. The timeline got a little weird for me. It immediately confused me, but then I was like, oh, okay, that just like wasn't clarified very well. It really romanticizes New York. I was like, oh, this is definitely a foreigner's idea of New York City. It's not crusty or gross at all. It's really cute. Which, okay, like, New York can be sort of pretty during Christmas, but I was like, okay. It follows our girl, I already forgot her name, but she is from London, and she is a famous chef, but she just got out of a really bad abusive relationship, and so she moves to New York City and tries to find a job as a chef, but she can't find one, and then eventually starts working at this noodle shop of a man who's gay who also owns the building that she lives in. Can we stop doing the gay best friend trope? Is all I gotta say. I was like, why? Anyway, she ends up finding this gelato store that her mother, who has recently passed away, has the recipe for this gelato store, but it's a family recipe, and the gelato store, she goes in to get gelato, and the gelato guy is like, oh my god, we can't make any gelato, I'm so sorry, I can't offer you any because the man who runs this place is in a coma or something, and no one else knows the recipe, and she has to be like, well, I know the recipe, but I shouldn't know the recipe because it is a family recipe, and how did my mom even get it in the first place? Obvious spoiler alert. The mom was involved with the gelato man. I mean, it's not a spoiler. You learn that in like the first 10 chapters or whatever. So then our girl pretends that she doesn't know the recipe, but she's a chef, so why doesn't she help try to figure it out? And so then she slowly makes ice cream batches that taste more and more like the actual recipe until they figure it out. And she slowly falls in love with this man. He was very Italian-American, which was a little cringy for me as an Italian-American, but it was fine, it's great, we love representation. I also didn't understand the very first chapter of the book starts with her meeting a man at a bookstore, and there's only one book left, and this is a release day, and she needs this book, and she like lies a bunch to him, and then leaves. And I didn't really understand why it started that way, because then we immediately stopped talking. We don't talk about that scene until like halfway through the book. And I was like, why did this even happen? That's all I have to say. The book is fine. I didn't love it. And then I had a couple of reread audiobooks this month, as I do. I listened to Little Woman again, which was really cute. If you don't know what Little Woman is about, where have you been? It's so good. It's such a heartwarming little book, and it's such a like seasonal book. I feel like it feels like winter, it feels like fall, it feels like spring. Do you know what I'm saying? It's got that like seasonal vibe to it. It follows Jo March and her sisters, Amy, Jo, Beth, and Meg, and their mom, Marmee. And then there's the boy across the street named Laurie, also known as Teddy. And they're living in, I want to say Massachusetts, but I'm not really sure if that's true, somewhere in America, in like the Civil War era. And they're just vibing, they're going through life. It's just a very like little slice of life type of vibe, but like talking about family and friendship and relationships. It's just really nice. I actually haven't read it since I was like 8 or something like that, and I was looking at Goodreads, and my original review for it was like 2 stars or something, which I think is really funny because I always thought I liked it. I don't remember ever not liking it. I will say though, the end of the book is a bit boring. Like they should have just stopped it after the New York bit. And then of course I watched the Greta Gerwig movie, and I was like, Greta did amazing work. Like the fact that she decided to rearrange all of the scenes so it's not in timeline order makes so much sense and is so much more interesting. So I really liked that. I was also surprised to compare the book to the movie. A lot of the scenes are almost like directly word for word from the book. The Laurie proposing to Jo scene is like legitimately almost word for word. It's no use, Jo. Jo, we gotta have it out. I've loved you ever since I knew you. I tried to show you will love me, which is fine, but I must make you your dog give me an answer because I cannot go on like this any longer. If you didn't know, I know that entire like 3-minute and 48-second scene. It was a pandemic thing. We're not gonna talk about it. I also listened to The Hobbit, which was really fun because I have read it twice before. When I was a kid, my dad read it to me, and when I was in high school, I read it myself and I really liked it. This time I wanted to do an audiobook, and there's a lot of different audiobooks to choose from for The Hobbit. They all have different things going on for them, but I did the Andy Serkis one. He's the guy that plays Gollum, and it was really, really good. Very cool. He does a bunch of different voices, obviously. He does the Gollum voice really well. He also did, like, the voices he did for, like, Gandalf and the different characters and stuff sounded like they're actors in the movies, which I was like, that's sort of cool. So I really liked that. I will also say though, rereading this, they're in the cave for very long, they're just hanging out. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Let's go, come on. But I do love it. We love The Hobbit. I think I'm gonna read the rest of the Lord of the Rings as well, because I've actually never finished the series. I've seen the movies a bajillion times, but when I was a kid and my dad was reading them to me, we read the first one and we got like halfway through the second one and I was like, this is boring, can we please stop? And then I've never read the third one or finished the second one. So maybe this is the year that I finally read them, because I do love Lord of the Rings so much. And then, as you know, I love a teenage reread. So I have all these different series that like really got me into reading when I was a teenager. So I'm rereading the Vampire Academy series, which I was obsessed with in like high school, I want to say, is when I was reading these, because whenever that movie came out, I had already read, I think, most of them by then. I want to say that movie was like 2014 or something like that. And I was obsessed with the movie. I actually had my mom bring me to, they were doing like a mall tour with the actors. So I met the girl who played Lissa and Dominic Sherwood, who plays her boyfriend in the movie, but who eventually plays Jace in the City of Bones movie. And so I met them at the mall, which was super exciting for me. And I don't remember the movie, so I did rewatch it, and I was like, oof, it's rough. I think they all did really good, but I think the script was bizarre. And it's very close to the book, I would say. Plot-wise, they really followed everything. There's also a lot of actors in that movie that I was like, what are you doing here? Claire Foy was in it. She's the lady who plays the queen in The Crown. Wild. I also just found out that apparently they made a TV show in 2021, I think. So I will be watching that soon as well. But I have just finished Vampire Academy 1 and the second one, which is called Bloodlust or something. I don't remember. So I listened to those as audiobooks. I think they still hold up. I like them a lot. I think they're fun. I think they're young adult. They have a little bit of problematic things, but nothing like blatantly racist or sexist or anything like that. Honestly, I thought it was a little sapphic. I definitely didn't pick up that as a kid, but I was like, oh, that's Lissa and Rose? I'm like, that's a little gay. It's a little gay. I wish they pursued that. That would have been crazy for 12-year-old me to read. But obviously these books came out in like 2008 or something like that. But I think they're fun. Like, they're set in a private school, so we've got school drama going on underneath while they have all this other drama with their powers going on and these, like, Strigoi vampires. If you don't know the plot of Vampire Academy, it is a story about a vampire girl named Lissa and her bodyguard, half-vampire person, Rose, and they are teenagers at a private high school, but the book starts with them and they've run away from school for reasons we don't know quite yet. But basically Rose is half vampire, and as a result she has a lot of like strengths and stuff, but she doesn't drink blood and anything like that, where Lissa is a Moroi vampire is what they're called. So she's a nice vampire. She needs blood to live, but she doesn't like kill people. AKA, she's like an Edward Cullen. And then we have evil vampires who kill their prey, who are called Strigoi. And so they're constantly trying to stay away from the Strigoi. I will say Vampire Academy does have one problematic thing, which is the weird relationship between Rose, 17-year-old vampire guardian, and Dimitri, 26-year-old vampire guardian teacher. It's not really gotten into until the third, fourth book, so in the first book, he's sort of like, you need to stay away, you are a child. And she's like, but you like me though, right? It's problematic. That's the main problematic thing from the story. There's no incest, there's no big racism that I really noticed. I don't know, maybe there was and I missed it, I'm sorry. There's no super big sexism that I noticed. So I sort of thought overall it wasn't super problematic. And I will even say the second one does not have second book syndrome. It was also great. Constantly I was like, oh, new stuff, let's go, this is so good. So I recommend them. I had a good little time. I think there's 6 of them. I have been told they get worse as they go. I legitimately don't remember them. I did read all 6 of them when I was a kid, and all I could remember from the whole series was the fact that they go on a ski trip, which is in book 2. Thank you for listening to me talk about books for a little bit. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any book recs for me down below, because I'm always looking for new books to read. I'm very excited for next month. I am planning on reading the Divine Rivals duology in March. I'm also planning on reading Nimona, finishing up Sandman, maybe reading Iron Flame, finishing up the Vampire Academy audiobooks. I think those are all my plans. Maybe the Lord of the Rings books. I don't really know. We'll see where the wind takes me. Thank you guys for watching. Bye!